Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Let's begin with an animation of the current storm system that's plaguing the middle part of the country and the southern part of the United States. You're looking here at an infrared satellite image, and the storms that we've seen over the last 24 hours have been quite powerful, and that's what we're really seeing here detailed. They've had plenty of moisture, and the atmosphere is destabilized, and as a result of that, combined with a little bit of wind shear, we've already produced out of the system 168 reports of severe weather. Now, the main threat out of this system we had been talking about was going to be hail. We've seen 116 reports of hail, but in addition to that, 45 reports of strong winds that's over 55 miles an hour, or 58 miles an hour, sorry, and also 7 tornado reports. Now, I want to talk with you about something you can be using from now all the way through the rest of this growing season when you're watching radar imagery like what you see here. So this is in parts of Kansas and northern Oklahoma. So I've taken you to the Wichita radar. And what I want you to focus on, let me just pause this video right about here and get to a part of a storm I really want you to see. All right, if we go right now to Howard, see this town here in southern Kansas? Do you see the high radar reflectivity values in here that have gotten up into the pink colors? When we get into those colors, I'm talking these right down here, we are seeing the radar scan through the hail core of a thunderstorm. And we have this distinct break where we get out of the 50s into the 60s with our radar reflectivity, and we do that on purpose so that we know when the radar has the highest chance of seeing some hail. So if you're watching the radar and you see these pinks and purples, these colors way over here coming across the screen and it's coming toward you, know that that storm's producing hail. This particular one near Howard produced 2-inch hailstones last night. Now, as you continue to play this animation, do you notice down here to the south, there's a particular part of this storm system that has this, what do I call a bowing segment of the storm. You can see this line of thunderstorms has a very distinct outward kind of protrusion here that's advancing to the east very rapidly. We call this a bow echo in atmospheric sciences. Yes, that's much different than a hook echo, but a bow echo here. And the only reason why storms do this is because they develop very strong back to front flow. So it's this radar signature that produces the strong straight line wind damage we saw, and it's the pinks you see kind of highlighted throughout this line to the north here that was producing the hail. So all throughout the rest of April, getting into May and June, which are our most active months for severe weather, you can be using radar to detect hail and radar yourself. The app I like to use is RadarScope. It's one of the best in the business. Okay, what are we looking at over the next couple of days here? We'll take you out early Saturday morning. The system that's currently causing problems right here in the early morning hours on Thursday is going to continue to progress, drawing an abundant amount of moisture. And our problem is we're going to be putting down several thunderstorms that will train where they follow one another, with the potential here picking up an additional 3+ inches of rain. As this storm system continues to progress to the east, major severe weather threat that's going to be down here along the Gulf Coast. I kind of circled the area that has the highest tornado threat. And as we progress into the day on Friday, we're going to see over here along the East Coast strong straight line wind damage out of this. Storm Prediction Center, of course, is on top of this. They've highlighted this region here on Thursday, here down in the lower Mississippi River Valley, parts of, again, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Major threat in through here due to wind shear, the wind shear profile for tornadoes. And then once we get into the day on Friday, like I said, it's going to be moving over here to the East Coast. So this deep system that's moving through the country is going to continue to bother us through the next 48 hours across the United States. I have good news, though, in this longer-term forecast. And so just to give you the big picture here as we move forward, next 7 days of rainfall shown to you down here in the map that's on the left, okay? Much of the rain that you see right in through here is coming in the next 24 hours. So yes, soaking parts of the Ohio River Valley, soaking parts of Illinois, and stretching all the way back into this part of Texas. Severe weather that progresses to the east. After that, I'm watching a system try to come through the northern plains at the end of the weekend and sneak down into Texas. But the major thing I want everyone to hear is the pattern change we've seen in the Pacific is meaning that in the middle part of the United States, the chances of us having these deep, large, multi-day events like we've seen in the last 3 weeks is decreasing with time. Problem is, we still have to get rid of the one we've got. And if you look over here at the map on the right, this particular region, which is expected to get a lot more rainfall, is already well over double their rainfall for the last couple of weeks here. In fact, some locations in here have seen over 10 inches of additional accumulation. So we're going to continue to fight a flood down there in the lower Mississippi River Valley. That's our problem. Now, soil moisture still very, very wet in a huge section of the country. And it's going to take a stretch of days where we have warm temperatures, I'm talking 70s and 80s, with relatively windy conditions to really bring down this moisture. If we do keep temperatures in the 70s and we have abundant sunshine, we can evaporate well over an inch and a half of inch and a half of liquid out of that soil in a week. But the abundance of moisture that you see here in parts of the north central plains is causing the flooding we're still experiencing in that area. Here's all of our river gauges right now that are at or near flood stage, and this is not going away anytime soon. The good news is you will say goodbye to the leftover snow that's up here once you see the temperature pattern I'm about to show to you. So this is kind of our high-level update, and we'll finish this off with just a little bit of temperature forecasting here. You ready for this? Well, as I move forward, you're going to see colder air coming in behind the low that's exiting the East Coast over the next couple of days. I've checked. There is no major frost threat with this colder air that's coming through, and I'm very happy to say it is short-lived. Behind it, look at the resurgence of warmth. We're going to start to see this on Thursday, but really Friday and Saturday in the Central Plains really, really warming up dramatically while we hang on to this cooler bias here in parts of the Mid-South as we progress through the day on Saturday. Sunday, Easter Sunday, is only going to be cool, I think, for this part of the United States over here on the East Coast, and we are watching that system starting to come out of the North Central Plains. But look at the warmth that we're going to see out ahead of this. And the cooler air that's coming in with that next system really isn't that cool. And it kind of hugs here the front range of the Rocky Mountains and sneaks down into Texas. And that's our next system. But watch, I'm just going to play this from Wednesday on out. And what do we see in general? Much of the United States is going to be experiencing warmer than average conditions as we progress out through the next 10, even 15 days. So with the lack of deep troughs, meaning widespread, abundant, heavy rain, and the warmth that's coming up, planting windows are going to start to emerge, and that is the main story that I want to get to here. Now, with that, I'm going to transition over to getting into some of the details of this forecast, and a lot of the details are going to be coming out of what's going on in the Gulf of Alaska. That's our main focal point here. So our trough ridge pattern, we see a big ridge building over California. This is the warmth we're getting here toward the end of the week in the Pacific Northwest and California. Here is our kind of two-headed trough feature that's causing all the severe weather we're experiencing over the next 48 hours. And it digs into a deep trough that hits the Mid-South. We've talked about what the temperatures are going to do there. But look in the Gulf of Alaska. You see, this is the key. We looked historically and we understand that if we end up getting troughing in Alaska, in the Gulf of Alaska, this generally produces a pattern that goes across the United States that features higher heights and therefore warmer overall conditions. This doesn't mean we can't have little subtle features that move through the flow. For example, early next week, we're watching this little trough dig down here into Texas, keeping the weather unsettled in this section of the country moving forward. But overall, the temperature patterns are not cold. So see this little trough? This is the one that bothers us down here in the southern plains as we progress through middle and end of next week. But much of the United States experiencing above average temperatures moving forward. And by the way, the cooler weather that the southern plains are going to be experiencing is still warm. So it's not as though we're dropping off temperatures down there into far, below seasonable weather here. No. It's going to be still going to be quite warm. But look, I'm taking you out all the way to day 10, day 13, day 14, and we're just continuing to see this trough feature allowing for flow across the United States that is going to give us warmer conditions and a lack of those deep penetrating troughs that bring in these multi-day systems that cause wet weather to just stick around for a long time. So this is the diagnosis of the pattern that's quite important to what's coming up. Now, let's go back to the short term. Let me show you what we're expecting in terms of severe weather. What we're watching here is an animation of our high-resolution NAM model getting us through Saturday morning. And if I just track this back, Remember, the major threat is going to be later on today. Now, heavy rain moving through the Ohio River Valley, moving through Illinois, coming down into the lower Mississippi River Valley in through parts of Arkansas. But we will be seeing in the overnight or late evening hours and overnight hours our main severe weather threat being right down here, Mississippi, Alabama, Panhandle of Florida. Now, as we progress, the rain just continues in parts of Indiana, Ohio, back into Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, as we get into the overnight hours on Thursday into Friday morning. And then this large frontal squall line passes through parts of course, Florida, but Georgia and South Carolina as we progress into the day on Friday. And that's where the continuation of our strong straight line wind threat will be. But on the back side of this, look at the light rain we're still going to be dealing with in parts of Illinois, into parts of Indiana, Ohio, getting down to Kentucky, Tennessee as we progress through the day on Friday. Well, this finally gets out of here by Saturday. And I think a lot of us will be thankful to see it leave once we get through the day on Saturday. Let's switch over, though, to our European model to get the rest of the details here. So I got you through early Saturday morning. Here it is. Now watch what happens for Easter Sunday. We're going to see cooler temperatures still hanging on in the eastern part of the United States, but a resurgence of warmth comes right up in the middle part of the country, and we're only going to be watching for rainfall along the warm frontal boundary, which will be up here. This will be lighter rain on Sunday morning through parts of South Dakota into Minnesota. Now, this is where the next system digs on down. So we're going to see through Sunday to Monday chances of precipitation basically from the Great Lakes stretching back through Iowa. But this isn't the big widespread soaking events like we've been seeing here. And Sunday will be a warmer day for much of us in the middle part of the country, compliments of this big area of higher atmospheric pressure pumping in the heat into the middle part of the country. But after that, look, this system really starts to be a problem for the south central plains. It's not the major soaking events like we've been seeing, but widely scattered showers and storms and potentially severe weather threat, which is typical of late April and early May in this part of the country. And as this system progresses, by midweek next week, we could be bringing rainfall from the Ohio River Valley, even in parts of the Northeast, down here into the parts of Texas. So you just notice here, we're not seeing, these well-defined deep low pressure systems, and that's a bit of a change over the pattern we've seen for quite some time. But overall, though, it's not as though it's a really dry pattern, but it is not as wet as we have been seeing. And that's why when we just look over the next 15 days, what do we get? Well, this is our precipitation anomaly map. And overall, we see a drier pattern for the north central plains, which they'll be happy about. Much of what you see here is coming in the next 48 hours. And just because we have this pesky system that sneaks down into Texas and moves east, we do keep this kind of wetter bias for parts of the cotton and peanut belt when you add it to what we've got. But right now, the Pacific Northwest getting all the way down to California, well, you can thank that Gulf of Alaska trough taking all of the systems up toward British Columbia, therefore keeping a warmer and drier pattern for much of California and Oregon and much of the Intermountain West as well. Where we stay wet, though, you can see parts of the Northeast, not the Pacific Northeast, but the Northeast stays wet here as well. Now, just to see if there's some multi-model agreement, I'm just going to show you week 2 from the GFS, GFS ensemble, and you can see it's still picking up on that wetter pattern down here in Texas. But look, parts of the Midwest, we are seeing a drying down with the warmer temperatures. We will find the ability to plant here, okay? And that's what I'm excited about. From there, let's transition to kind of a more global outlook here. A couple things I'm paying attention to. We've been very wet in this part of China for quite some time now. We're going to have to continue to watch that moving forward. You can see in the week 2, we're going to keep much of the Russian wheat belt dry, as well as parts of North and Ukraine not picking up on a major wet bias. But let's come down here to South America. Now, we had been in much of Brazil over the last week. Things have been wet, but you just saw in the forecast a bit of a drying down. And we are seeing that in this region. So this is the European model picking up on the pattern, possibly being much closer to average or drier than average. Remember, we're losing the strength of the Brazilian monsoon, so this is important. That drier forecast, though, is coming on the heels of a wetter time period. So that's why you're going to hear a lot of reports out of Brazil and Argentina where the conditions are good. And just looking out over the next 15 days, I don't see any early frost risk for Brazil or Argentina moving forward. So we're not yet to that time period where we could get these major frosts that come through. And I'll finish this up with just a quick discussion about Europe. I told you a moment ago that it was dry. You can see the European ensembles picking up on that over the next 15 days as well. And that's because primarily the flow patterns featuring this broad ridge, keeping things very warm, especially in northern Europe, and a lot more unsettled when you get down here into the Iberian Peninsula, Portugal, and Spain. Okay, so overall a drier pattern for Europe over the next 15 days. But just want to give you that kind of quick global perspective here as we wrap up this forecast video. Well, we at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to our next ag forecast. Head to my.nutrienagsolutions.com to get our daily forecast updates, including yesterday our new long-range outlook. Go check that out. Hope you all have a great end to your week, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you.